Welcome to another episode of You. I'm happy that you're here. I hope you've had a really wonderful weekend. Now, today's episode, we're thinking about what ifs. And specifically, if you're somebody who sometimes finds yourself a little bit paralysed by all of the different options and all of the possibilities, and what if I did this and that might happen, and what if I did this and that might happen, and trying to figure out the best way forward. I have, hopefully, all being well, some encouragement for you today. And it comes by way of a personal story, because over the weekend, I made a really stupid decision. As some of you know, we were at my parents' house for the weekend, and we were having a barbecue on Saturday afternoon. And my car was parked in a row of cars in front of the barbecue. So in order for the cars not to get covered in barbecue stuff, like smoke or whatever, we always reverse the car back. My 15-year-old daughter said, "Mum, can I reverse the car back?" And I said, "Yeah, all right then." Pride comes before a fall, let's just say that. My 17-year-old is learning to drive. She's going really well, and I've done a lot of the teaching because we're in lockdown. And Caitlin, my 15-year-old, has been there. And I thought, well, it's only going backwards. What could possibly go wrong? Well, it would have all been fine, except I was sat next to her in the passenger seat. And because she doesn't know how to drive a car, I put the car into gear for her. But instead of putting her into reverse, I put her into first gear. So she put her foot on the accelerator, and having never driven a car before, she didn't press it lightly, she pressed it really hard. The engine roared, and the whole car went forward into the barbecue. Now, if I wish I could show you a picture of the car versus how this whole situation played out, because there are a number of pieces to this. I'll get onto the what if of it in a moment, but if you look at my car, there's a little bit of a scratch on the number plate. There's a piece on the wing which is dented and moved slightly. But I got out of the car and I said, "Oh, is the barbecue okay?" It's a great big stone barbecue. My mum was standing on the other side of the barbecue. She said, "Don't worry about the barbecue, is your car okay?" And she told me afterwards that she expected when I reversed the car to find all the car crumpled in. She also told me afterwards, and my dad mentioned it, and then Caitlin said she saw the whole barbecue lift up like this towards my mum and then go back down again. This could have been a horrific, awful, terrible accident. And yes, I am going to learn from this. Sometimes we say we're going to learn our lessons. I really need to learn from this, because I do feel incredibly thankful. I feel protected. I am actually quite convinced, and nobody will convince me otherwise, that God saw this situation unfolding, went, "Oh, Elle, really?" And then dispatched a couple of angels, because I can imagine him, "Oh, this is not going to end well. Come on, you two, you need to go and sort that out." I can imagine, and I believe there was a great big burly angel stood between my car and that barbecue. Incidentally, where the dent is in my car is not the bit that hit the barbecue. It's bizarre. I am convinced we were protected on Saturday, and I am so thankful, because if you go down the route of what if, for example, that whole barbecue lifted up, my mum was stood behind the barbecue, the bed of the barbecue was full of hot coals, that whole thing could have, instead of going up and coming back down again, it could have gone up and kept going, and the whole thing could have landed on her. I mean, I don't even want to go down that route of thinking what if anymore. The whole situation could have been horrific and tragic and just terrible. So yes, I am going to learn from that. But that's not the point of this episode. What I was reflecting on, though, was this idea that, because Caitlin was distraught, she was so upset. "Oh, I should never have suggested." I said to her, "No, Caitlin, the fault is not with you. The fault is with me. You're 15. You should be able to rely upon the fact that your mum will make good decisions on your behalf, and also put you in the right gear." As an aside, if I had put her into reverse, it would have been a whole different story. But I didn't. And so I apologised to her, and she was distraught. "I'm never driving a car." I said, "No, Caitlin, you're never driving a car until you're 17. And she did come round and realise that, and within 24 hours, she was talking about when she drives a car. But she said something interesting to me. She said, "I didn't realise cars were so powerful." And I was reflecting, and I thought, can you imagine what if, as a result of this experience, when she eventually gets behind the wheel of a car, or she's in a car with her friends, what if as a result of that, she's a little bit more cautious? And what if as a result of that, it actually saves her life? So what if this whole experience on Saturday means that I'm going to make better decisions in future, so that any future decisions, the way you can go this, can you imagine if Saturday hadn't happened, and then I didn't learn my lesson, and I didn't try and God helping me get better at making decisions, and something far worse could happen? There's that piece. What if Saturday hadn't happened the way it did, and then as a result, Caitlin got into a car, wasn't particularly cautious, and then had an accident? There's so many what ifs to this. And I guess my encouragement ultimately is we need God helping us to let go of the what ifs, because we cannot, you cannot possibly go through every single possible scenario. It reminds me of the Marvel Endgame. If you haven't seen it, I'm not going to give you any spoilers, except to say, or I'm not going to ruin the ending for you. What I will say is there's one particular scene in Infinity War where Doctor Strange, he has this power in his brain. He can think through. He thinks through all the what ifs. And there are, I think he said there's 14,000,001 potential ways the whole scenario could play out. And in only one of those scenarios would they manage to win. And they do that in Endgame, and I'm not going to spoil that for you. But all of these different, because that was his superpower. He could go and think through. His brain his head sort of spins around, but he can think through all of those scenarios at once. I would encourage you that we don't need to do that. That actually, God helping us, we go, okay, if you're stuck with all these different paralysis, what is the next action? And you can ask God, I've done this, I do this. Okay, what is the next step? And I've shared with you before, one of the reasons I believe that we don't get the blueprints like Noah had, for example, with the ark, is because we have Holy Spirit. So we get to have that day-by-day conversation. And so I just want to encourage you, if you're facing lots of different possibilities and lots of options, and maybe you're feeling a little bit paralyzed by some of that, I want to encourage you, first of all, you are protected. You're even protected from really daft, ridiculous, stupid decision-making things that you do. Now, I'm not for 1 minute going to say that every single time you make a daft decision, God is going to send a great big burly angel to protect you. But we are told that we are protected. So first of all, you are protected. Second of all, God can take every situation and turn it to good. So Saturday was ridiculous. It scared Caitlin. It scares me now when I reflect on what could have happened. Also made my husband quite cross. But thankfully, that's another piece of it. I actually was praying, okay, obviously he wasn't with us at the time. He was in work. And when I was sort of praying, okay, when I tell him, give me the words so that I can tell him in action so that we don't have a great big blazing row, because that won't help anybody. And we didn't. Yes, he was cross, and he was cross because of the decision I made to put Caitlin behind the wheel of a car. He wasn't cross because of the damage per se, because accidents happen. But accidents shouldn't happen with a 15-year-old behind the wheel, because that's just daft. And if, incidentally, we're on private land, so it wasn't illegal. I just want to put that out there, because I know this podcast, although it's for members of the playground, it does go out via other avenues as well. We're on a private property. So yes, it was stupid. It wasn't illegal. So please don't send the police round, because there's really no need. But you are protected. God will turn and can turn every situation to good. And thirdly, you have the Holy Spirit with you all the time. And so if you're facing a series of possibilities, I want to encourage you. Sorry, my mouth ran away with my brain then. I want to encourage you and remind you. Ask Holy Spirit, what is my next action? What should I do now? What are you leading me to do? And see what comes up. And of course, as a member of the playground, if you're not sure, we can talk about this stuff as well, because it does talk about how, yes, you have Holy Spirit, and sometimes you can get that sensing inside you what the correct right next action is. But it also talks about seeking a witness. And yes, that witness can be Holy Spirit, but that witness can be other people. I've shared with you before that when I first started sharing the Holy Spirit Daily Love Notes, I got that sort of inkling that would be a good idea, and felt God saying, share these with the ladies in the playground. But then I got confirmation via somebody else with a word that they gave that was completely, they weren't connected to that. They didn't know. And so sometimes we do get that confirmation, and we can seek that confirmation. So if there's something that you want to chat about and talk out loud about, share it in the playground. But more than anything, I just want to encourage you. You don't need to be stuck and paralyzed. You are called to step forward, full to the top with God's love, thriving, joyful. What Jesus did on the cross allows us to be these people who are free. And we live sometimes too much stuck as those people we were before. So I want to encourage you today, rise up in the love that God has for you, and don't be stuck. You don't need to be stuck. You can move forward. You're protected. God can turn it to good, and you can ask for that day by day, what is the next step? As always, thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing this with me. Sharing this moment with me. And I shall see you in the playground. Take care. Bye-bye.